Hi everyone, Kim Schofield here. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I am super excited to introduce to you a new product from Ranger. This is the LETTERit product line. This was just announced from Ranger today, and this includes a variety of products that are perfect for card makers. So I am going to be unveiling all of the products in today's video, along with 6 unique cards that I created using primarily the products found in the kit. So the LETTERit product line includes stamps and another other variety of supplies that are perfect for creating cards. Of course, it's not limited to that. You could use these cards for any craft project, but these were perfect this is a perfect kit for card makers. So the first thing we have when you open this up is of course inks. And so I have 8 archival inks. And I love this in the mini format because you can fit a lot of inks in a small space. I was hesitant about the minis, but once I started using them, I absolutely love them. I can't live without them now. And I've also got 8 embossing powders. So these are beautiful colors, a little bit smaller jar than buying them individually, but these are great metallics, beautiful colors. I have a set of metallic pens, and these write beautifully. They're really great for using on a dark cardstock. I also have 4 pens here, and they each have a different nib. And these you can use with perfect pearls and embossing powders. So the nib point in each of these pens has a sticky ink, and it's perfect to use if you wanted to doodle and then emboss something or add some perfect pearls. These are great to use for that. And I've also got 2 packs of perfect pearls in 4 different colors. See here we've got a stamp press, or a stamping block rather, embossing ink, and the stamp sets. So these are beautiful stamp sets. They are all with sentiments, and I love the different fonts. They're gorgeous. These script fonts are beautiful. I can't wait to see them stamped. I have got a set of tags, and this includes 3 different sizes, and they are in the cream and the gray cardstock that you can see here. 2 packs of cardstock pre-cut down to perfect card size, and then the last 3 stamp sets. So these stamp sets are awesome, and they're perfect for any occasion. Hello, thank you, get well, baby, congratulations, wedding, and birthday. Really, you almost don't need any other sets there. These are great. Every sentiment you could need for making cards. And I do want to mention also with the perfect pearls that you also get the little brush and the little ink for that. So let's get on to the very first card, which we see here. And this is going to be showcasing the perfect pearls. So I'm going to be using the thank you set here. And I have a stencil here from Tim Holtz, and I've got that taped down onto my nonstick craft sheet. And I am taking the perfect pearls medium, and I am just smushing that all along and through the stencil. Of course, I use the tape to hold that stencil steady, especially because I have a thin line here, and so I have to be careful that my ink pad is not picking up any edges of the stencil. And you can see that ink on there. And now I'm going to use my perfect pearls and the brush that came with the kit, and I'm just going to swirl on the perfect pearl powder. And isn't that beautiful? It's got a beautiful shine. I really like the tone on tone. This is a gray color on top of the gray cardstock. This gray would be beautiful on top of a lighter cardstock as well. It's what I really like about the perfect pearls. You can use it on dark or light cardstock. So I'm just going to cover that entire area. And I am using a Swiffer cloth just to pick up any excess that is dropped on my mat. And I'm going to very, very gently, you don't want to rub this too much because you'll smear the ink. I'll rub some of the excess off, and then I'm going to spray this with water to set that perfect pearl powder so it doesn't move or rub off. And now I'm going to go on to stamping my sentiment, and I am using my Mini Misty stamp positioning tool just in case I don't get a good impression the first time, but these stamps work really well, and I love the way they stamp. And so almost, I think I missed one little tiny spot on here, but really they stamp really well every single time. So I'm going to ink that up a second time just to get a really good impression. And look at how beautiful that script is. I love it. So now I'm going to create some colored cardstock. I wanted some pink to go on either side of my card base. And I didn't have this color, and I really liked this Distress Oxide ink. So all I did was use a blending tool and applied some of that ink onto a piece of white cardstock. And then I cut a few little strips. And you can see here that's just going on the side of that Perfect Pearls piece. And then I'm using some craft foam to give me some dimension on either side, or on that Perfect Pearls area. And that's all added onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card. And I had some of this extra pink, so I decided to add that inside my card. And then I also added a sentiment to the inside. And then I'm going to go ahead and decorate one of the small tags, again, using some more of that little pink cardstock that I created. And I'm adding 2 little stripes of that. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some more of that same design and the Perfect Pearls onto the tag. So this will match my card. So this will make a cute little gift set. If you had a present you were giving to someone, you could attach your tag, and then you would have your card to go along with it, and everything would coordinate. So adding that Perfect Pearls again, same process, wiping off some excess and just using my water to heat set that. And then while that dries, I am using a Distress ink pad to color up some crinkle ribbon. And I just put some of that ink down onto my nonstick craft sheet, smushed it in with the ink there, and then I'll let that dry while I add my thanks sentiment. I'll just keep drawing that off. And then now I'll go ahead and attach my tag, attach my ribbon to my tag. And you can see that color dries back a little bit. It's not quite as dark once it's fully dry. Just cut off that excess. And now I have my completed card and tag set. And I did add a few sequins onto the card. And then I did want to also show you what these metallic pens look like on the dark cardstock. So sometimes a regular ballpoint pen isn't going to show up that well, but these metallic pens are gorgeous on the dark cardstock. They are so pretty and they write really well. And so that completes our first card. And we're going to go into our second card, which is going to be using the baby stamp set. And here's that set. And I used some Wendy Vecchi translucent embossing paste and add that onto 2 pieces of cardstock, and that's now dry. So I just used 2 Wendy stencils with the paste. And now I have 2 of the Archival inks that come with the LETTERit kit, and then 2 Distress Oxide inks. And I'm going to be doing some blending with both of these. And then I did use a Simon Says die cut just to cut out this little swoopy part at the top, which you'll see more later in the video. So I am going to blend going from the darker color of the Archival inks down to a little bit of the lighter color with the Distress inks. Now, using Archival inks to blend over any kind of embossing paste is going to mean that the Archival ink is going to stick a little bit more to the embossing paste than a Distress ink. So because a Distress ink reacts with water, I'm going to be able to and it's the translucent embossing paste is going to resist the Distress ink. I'll be able to wipe off any ink that's sitting on top of the embossing paste. But the Archival ink tends to stick a little bit more on top of the embossing paste than the Distress ink does. But you can still get a great blend between those 2 colors, and they blend beautifully. So here you can see my 2 finished cards with the blue and the pink. And now I have a sentiment, my Bundle of Joy sentiment. And I did actually put it a little bit of a curve to follow the curve of that piece of paper. And I want to show you how you can emboss with archival ink. So you can see what I did first was ink it up with the embossing ink, and then I put the stamp into the archival ink. So normally, archival ink would dry very quickly and is not the best for embossing. But if you ink your stamp first with embossing ink and then come back in with archival ink, now you can use that for embossing. You don't have to worry about the quick drying time. And so now I'm creating the tags, and I did do some blending on these tags with the archival ink and the distress ink. And I'm just going to emboss 2 sentiments in white. And now I'm going to use my the metallic markers to add just a little bit of doodling onto the bottom of the tags. And I'm using similar colors, so blue on the blue and the pink on the pink. And I'm just creating a few straight lines and a few little polka dots, some little doodles. Now I'll go ahead and ink up my sentiment, and you can see again how beautiful it is. So I put 2 of the sentiments together, and I did pink inside the one and then blue inside the other. So now I did add some fun foam for a little bit of dimension, and I'm going to just tie that white ribbon around the back. And so now I have a little bit of dimension. I'll let that dry for a second, and then I'll go ahead and add a bow, which you can see here. So here are my 2 finished baby cards and my 2 tags. Really quick and easy. And that embossing paste just adds a nice little resist. So now let's go on to a wedding card. And I'll be using the cream cardstock that came with the kit. And again, I'm going to be embossing. So I've taken a bunch of the sentiments from this stamp set, put them all onto my acrylic block, and then I'm going to ink up these sentiments and stamp them all the way down the card. So it really only took, I think I only had to stamp twice. And then I'm going to go ahead with this beautiful gold embossing powder and add that onto my card. So really, you could do this all over the piece of cardstock, and you'd create your own designer paper. And this is just using sentiments, which I love. I really haven't brought in any other extra stamps. I'm mostly just using the sentiments that are found in the kit or in the stamp sets. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set that. I had so much fun playing with the embossing powders. I know embossing has been around forever, but I'll tell you, you can just do so much with embossing powders. Look at that gorgeous shine, really, really nice. So here's how you can use these pens. So I didn't stamp the S very well. So I went back in and I just used my pen to trace over that. And now, I don't have to worry about lining my stamp back up, and it's perfect. I filled in that letter. So now I have another tag, and instead of using this as, something you would attach to a gift, I'm actually going to use the tag on the front of my card. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp and emboss again in that gold embossing powder. And you can see I stamped the Mr. and Mrs. first. And then I'm going to come back with my little ampersand and fit it in there. I had embossing powder all over the place when I finished making all these cards. Everything was very glittery. All right, so here are my pieces ready to go. And I did did a similar thing with the blue cardstock. And then I also did some embossing so that I cut out a strip of blue paper and a strip of gold. Now I am going to add some perfect pearls onto this twine that I have. So I don't like this twine because it looks a little rustic. So I basically inked up the whole piece of twine with the Perfect Pearls medium. And then I just smushed it all down and wiped off any excess. And now I have this great piece of gold twine. So I'm using some Ranger Multi-Matte to add the little strips of paper onto the side of my card. I just had a thing for gold and navy when I was creating this. I was like, I have to do something with gold and navy. Those 2 colors look great together. So there were 2 little engagement rings on there, so our wedding rings. So I add a little bit of shimmer to that. went ahead and added my piece where everything was embossed. And now I'm adding some crinkle ribbon and some of that gold twine. And the crinkle ribbon I inked up with a little bit of antique linen distress ink. And again, I'm using Fun Foam for a little dimension. And then because my twine kind of wanted to stick up there, a little wonky, I just used some multi-matte to hold those ribbons in place. And now you can see what that looks like up close. So really clean and simple. Let's go on to birthday cards. This was my favorite card that I love this one. So I have the birthday set. I have a whole bunch of embossing patterns. And then I die cut a bunch of balloons. And you could use anything. You could die cut these by hand if you wanted to. You could use die cuts. There's so many balloon type shapes that you can find out there now. And I'm just applying some embossing ink all over them. And you could either do it the way I did it, or you could press the balloon directly into the embossing ink. So I ended up doing 3 layers of embossing powder on these because I wanted it to be really smooth. These are gorgeous colors. I think this is the rose gold, really pretty. And so you can see how that starts to smooth out, and then I will add another layer of that. So here I'm just pushing that balloon directly into the ink, which works fine too. And you just want to make sure these are completely cool before you add another layer onto anything. So here's my 3rd layer of the rose gold. And this is when it really smooths out and it just gets gorgeous. So now I am adding some clouds to the background. I just hand cut this. There are stencils and dies that you can use, but I find hand cutting works great. And I'm actually using an archival ink to blend out these clouds. And all I'm doing is moving this mask down my piece of cardstock and just going over the edge and just flipping it backwards and forwards just so that I don't have that same pattern all the way down, so the clouds look different. And you can see that you get great blending with archival inks. And then I'm going to go ahead and leave the bottom there so that I have a little bit of space for my sentiment. And of course, since I'm stamping directly onto this piece, I want to make sure it comes out well. So I'm using my Misty. Look at that, gorgeous. So now I've placed the balloons where I want them, and I'm adding a little tiny pencil mark. And I did actually take a picture of these so I'd remember where to put them. And then I did use my ruler and a pencil just to draw the lines in. And then went ahead with a black pen and added those and added a few little bows to the top. And then some of these balloons I popped up using foam tape, and then some of them I applied directly onto the piece of cardstock. This was my favorite one. I love this one. I want to recreate this. And then you can cut off that excess of the balloons that are hanging over. And there's my Fun Foam again for some great dimension. I'm a fan of the Fun Foam now, and you can actually buy it with adhesive on one side. I do find that I like to attach it with glue more than tape because I feel like the glue holds a little bit better. And so that's just on top of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card. And that had so much shimmer and shine, I just left it as is. You can see all that beautiful embossing powder there. So on to the next card. This was very exciting because this was the first time that I played with Yupo paper. So I have not played with that before, and it is very cool. So I have a whole bunch of archival inks, and I have a felt on top of my blending tool. So I don't have the foam pad, I have a little felt tab. And I really wanted rainbow colors, so I have all my inks here. Some of these are from the LETTERit kit and summer ones that I had. And so I'm just adding some colors, and I'm kind of just playing at this point. Want to see how it reacts, and I do have some blending solution, but you could also use rubbing alcohol, would work as well. And I'm putting that onto my felt and then just dabbing that all over. Now, because I'm going from one color to another, you do have to be careful because those colors could transfer. And then you can clean up your craft sheet with your blending solution or rubbing alcohol as well. So now I'm just playing, doing this on a sideways and kind of, I really like that look. I shouldn't have touched it again. I thought, oh, I wonder if I could get it going across, but it will remove some of the color, so it'll get softer if you keep going over with the blending solution. So that was just a little bit of play because I had never played with this paper before, and it is so cool. So now let's get on to the card. So on this one, I just wanted to drop some of that blending solution on there and kind of just let it create these circles. And then I went ahead and dried that. And then I'm gonna come back in with a cotton ball, and you could use the felt tool, or you could use a cotton ball, whatever you have. And so I'm just blending out those circles a little bit and get a little bit more design in the background. And this is what's so much fun. You can just keep working with this. And the more you work with it, the more interesting it gets. It's so cool. So I even went back in and added some more of that blue color because I felt like I'd kind of lost it with the blending solution. So here's my finished piece, and I've got a top folding card again, and I'm going to go ahead and add some white embossing paste because I wanted a little bit of texture. So I'm going to put down some Post-it tape just to keep the back of my card clean. And this is just some embossing paste. Wendy Vecchi also sells this, the white embossing paste. It's my fave. And removing that. And so now I set that aside to dry. And while I did that, I'm going to go ahead and add my sentiment. Now, the Archival ink stamped on top of the Yupo paper is going to be a different look because it's kind of like a glossy paper. So I did feel like I needed to stamp this twice to get really good coverage, but the sentiment still looks great. So now I'm going to go in with the rest of my sentiment that I'm going to include with my hello. And I'm stamping that on some black cardstock and embossing with white embossing powder. And then I'll go ahead and heat set that and cut this down to size. So I wanted to add a few little butterflies, and this is the Wendy Vecchi Matte Minis. I love these, and I'm actually using a gray ink, which might seem a little strange for butterflies, but it was going on such a colorful background that I actually wanted these to be a neutral color. So super easy, blending tool and some archival ink to color those up. You could use Distress ink as well. And then I'll go ahead and add a little shimmer with my Wink of Stella shimmer pen. And I'll just attach those with a little bit of glue. And then I have a few little rhinestones. And that finished off this card. We're on to the last card, and this is using the Congrats stamp set. So again, I've got a bunch of the sentiments from the stamp set onto an acrylic block. And then I've masked out a part of my cardstock with some Post-it tape. And I'm just using the gray ink to repeatedly stamp these sentiments all the way down the card. And I am working on a bit of an angle there. And then you can see I have a few little gaps, and I'm just going to remove those stamps and go in and pick those up. Super quick and easy to fill in the gaps. And then when I remove the Post-it note tape, I have a great design. So I stamped the hooray, and I am actually going to cut that out. So I did cut it out, and I used an X-Acto knife to cut around the inside of all the letters. And then here, again, I'm kind of just playing with some embossing powder. I'm not sure what I want to use for the rest of my hip hip for my hooray. I don't know if I want to do it in the gray. You can see here on the silver, I lose it a little bit too much. And so I embossed again. I stamped in some black and I embossed in some white. And it was kind of just, I've got this little strip and I'm just practicing which color looks better on the dark cardstock. So now I'm going to emboss this die. This is a Tim Holtz die into my card front. And so I'm holding this down with a piece of washi tape. And then here's my sandwich. So I have a Big Shot, and instead of using the die cutting pad, I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to just use the platform. How you would do if you were embossing, using embossing folder. So I've got my platform, one plate, a rubber mat, then my card front with my die and another plate, and I'm going to run that through my Big Shot. Now I ended up covering that up. I didn't end up using it like that, but that's just so you know how you can emboss that image into the card front without die cutting. So now I have a bunch more die cuts. These again are all from Tim Holtz, and I die cut a bunch of these tags or labels. I guess they're more like labels, and I am embossing in a few different colors. I've got this navy, which is beautiful, the gray, and then the top one I embossed in bridal shimmer. It's gorgeous. So it's like a white, but very shimmery, almost iridescent, really pretty color. And so you can see here my hip, I've got it in the white and I've got it in the black, and I can kind of try both out. And then here is the finished card. So all I did was layer up all of those die cuts using some fun foam, and I used some glue to attach my sentiment onto the front. And that is it for the 6 cards. Oh, I hope you enjoyed seeing the latest product release from Ranger. Visit my blog for more pictures of all the products, and visit your favorite Ranger retailer to check out any of the new products.